Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello.
And welcome to day 3 of Disability Awareness Week. This is our final event of the day. We have a couple more events tomorrow. And, for this year's Disability Awareness Week, we chose to focus on the whole person, right? And the myriad of intersecting identities that we all possess that are often overlooked in people with disabilities. One thing I also wanted to say is that we're presenting to you from stolen land, land stolen from the Lenape people. And I hope that, someday in our society's future that we can make amends, to the generations of indigenous peoples who have been displaced from their lands, and worse. But welcome to the Students Unlimited, a conversation among students. We're going to be, talking about our feelings and opinions surrounding certain, words that people use and how we identify as people. And our moderator is going to be Pedrin Villamon, and he's going to, keep our conversation going and maybe even contribute himself. So Pedrin, the floor is all yours.
Good afternoon. My name is Pedrin Villamon, and I am a student at KCC. And we are Students Unlimited. The purpose of our club is to share information, advocate for and confront issues of concern to students with disabilities, as well as persons with disabilities in the community. Students Unlimited is also meant to be an active, positive social outlet. We are hosting this event because we wanted you to be a part of this conversation to help debunk and demystify certain words and terms used when describing or discussing people with disabilities. This is a conversation we've had many times, and all of us do not agree on how and when to use these terms. If time allows, we will take questions from you all. Panelists, can you introduce yourself and share your disability if you feel comfortable?
I guess I'll go first unless somebody else wants to go first. Okay. So my name is Margot Cobb, an alumni of Kingsborough Community College. My disability is cerebral palsy, which affects the brain. So my balance and movement is affected, and my muscles are a little bit tighter than normal. I also have a job as a board member of a theater in New Mexico called Teatro Paraguas.
Eugene,
Hi, my name.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Adrian Vasquez. I have cerebral palsy.
Eugene, would you like to go next?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Eugene Ross. Currently graphic design major at Kingsborough, and my disability is a learning disability, which impairs my amygdala, which is it's like learning processes. So it affects my ability to retain certain information, especially math related stuff. So yeah.
Would someone like to go?
Somebody please go first.
Yeah, can somebody
sure, I'll go. Yeah, so my name is Karen, and I'm a current student at Kingsborough, but my major is general liberal arts, and I'm involved in panels and like many types of clubs.
Saeem or Ben?
Okay, I'm Saeem Sarwar. I also have CP and I'm a Brooklyn College alumni.
Hello, my name is Benji Hannon. I'm the Assistive Technology Specialist for our department. I would also describe myself as an autistic hypergiant superstar, an ideas man, a hardline Brooklynite, and a necktie enthusiast.
Hi guys, my name is Nikki. I'm majoring in accounting. I have physically disability and also mentally. I'm diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, depression, bipolar. And my physical disability would be vision loss. And recently, just going to doctor's appointments and stuff, they found an aneurysm in my brain. So we're trying to figure out what's the next step.
Nikki, I'm very sorry to hear about that update. I hope that maybe we could talk outside of the session, okay?
Yeah. I wish you the best.
Thank you, guys.
The definition of the word disability is a physical, mental, cognitive, or developmental condition that impairs, interferes with, or limits a person's ability to engage in certain tasks or actions or participate in physical daily activities and interactions. So that's Webster's definition. What do you all think?
That's narrow and closed-minded. The dictionary could do much better.
Margot Cole, would you like to speak next?
Oh, Margot, go.
Saim, you can go first. I don't have to go.
I mean, in a general sense, I think it's pretty spot on for something technical and brief. I don't see anything wrong with it personally.
And as far as the dictionary definition, yeah, it is somewhat surface level, but as far as what disability means to me, it's more just, it's something that gives me my rights. And it also describes part of what's going on with my CP in a sort of a physical sense. So I also don't have any problem with the term disability or how it's defined in particularly there. But, you know, as Ben pointed out, it doesn't give you the whole picture either.
Benjamin, would you like to speak next?
I can
Benjamin
elaborate
spoke.
on what I said earlier. I feel like that definition has completely failed to address the social construction of disability. And I feel like there are some disabilities that are physical realities and other disabilities that are social realities. As a person with autism, I feel like it's possible in a different world where I was not perceived as weird and odd and different, I would not be diagnosed with anything. But that's not the world I'm living in.
Would Eugene or Karen like to go next?
I don't have any problem in terms of the word disability, as like what Mario said earlier.
I definitely understand where Benji is coming from, and it kind of, the definition that we have for it now is a reflection of a society that promotes like the specific idea of normal. And in discussions that I've had with Peter and everybody else in Students Unlimited, one of the most important things that we talked about was how the idea of what's normal is so subjective, and it applies different meanings to everybody because everybody has a different idea of what that is. So.
I think Saim wants to
Oh.
say something.
Saim, you wanna?
Yeah, I
wanna
just
move
wanted
the
to add,
dialogue?
I agree, I agree with Benji. It's a very, in the way he was defining it, it is kind of nerve-wracking because a lot of stuff can happen with disability. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that that definition doesn't really consider. So I just wanted to add that.
So from our conversation on the term disability, it seems like there are different perceptions on how to use words to describe people. Webster's does not define these terms: person-centered language and identity-first language. Person-centered language is language that puts people first. People are so much more than their substance use disorder, mental illness, or disability. Using person-centered language is about respecting the dignity, worth, unique qualities, and strengths of every individual. Identity-first language puts the descriptor first and is more common among specific disabled communities. It is primarily used in the context of a disability, medical conditions, including mental health conditions, or other physical or cognitive difference. One such example is the deaf community, where quote unquote deaf person is generally preferred over person with deafness. Panelists, what are your thoughts? Would someone like to begin?
I can go first unless you wanted to go first again, Saeed.
Yeah,
I don't.
you know, yeah.
Go ahead.
To answer that question, I really don't have a preference. For me, I'd rather go with disability, just because it's easier to say. As far as my opinion goes, as long as you don't use the word cripple, I'm pretty much okay with mostly anything. That's my take.
Yeah, and I'll tack on to what Saeem was saying. For me, person with a disability and disabled person is exactly the same term for me mentally. Some of my friends like really see a big difference between those two, but I never did. So I never understood why they would literally get into shouting matches over which one was better than the other, because it didn't really seem to make any sense to me. And as I've had in other conversations, when you're dealing with ableism that can sometimes be kind of life and death, why are we fighting over whether which term is better than the other? Just address the person the way they want to be addressed, and like move on to bigger things like, you know, poverty, not having access to the correct medical care, you know, much more serious things. And just for me in general, I try to, you know, describe my disability in the most direct and simple way possible, because it just makes it easier to ask for accommodations from AAS or those kind of situations. So I don't really, you know, try to go too crazy with the wordings. Just so long as like it's basically understood and like you're not using it to hurt somebody, I don't really care. The only term that I will never use for myself is for a while there was on Twitter going around, people wanted to change disability to inclusion seeker. And I was like, no, that makes us sound like babies. I'm not looking to be included. I'm looking for access to this thing so I can decide whether I wanted to be included in this particular environment. My decision, my body. So I didn't like inclusion seeker for that reason. It sounds like you're saying that we're like little children saying, mommy, include me. No. I also use the term cripple in the same way that Crip Camp uses it, which is a joke for my films, because I make these films and my production company is called Crip Video Productions, but it's a joke. It's not meant in the way that, you know, Saeem was describing, where you're talking about like using it to hurt somebody. It's sort of like an in-joke, and I suggest checking out Crip Camp so you can actually see how that term is used. And then if you want to see my stuff is at cripvideoproductions.com.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Margot and Saeem. It's less about the word, more about how it defines somebody, and really your decision if you're going to let that word define who you are I think, there definitely is an issue with the society that we live in, because oftentimes it has perpetuated stigmatizing people with disabilities and not accommodating them.
Yeah, I would like to expand on what Margaret said earlier about the term inclusion seeker, I think it was. Because like I personally like don't like the term inclusion seeker at all, especially when it comes to talking about disabilities.
Inclusion seeker almost sounds like it's dripping with sarcasm, kind of like looking at it from the lens that we have it from. I, for myself, use identity first language for some things, like I'm autistic, but also my hair falls out like there's no tomorrow. I'm not going to say I'm a shedding person, but I am an autistic person. Because when it actually has a significant bearing on my life, I like to put that first. I also want to briefly touch upon, while we're going over odd vocabulary we found, differently abled has always sat poorly with me. Like, if I had different abilities, I wouldn't be speaking here. I'd be joining the Avengers. I'm autistic. That's what I am.
Good one. And I'll just piggyback on that, and I'll say that I noticed with my disability, cerebral palsy, there's no really way to put like the word cerebral palsy in front of other words. So I just end up kind of using person first if I'm using cerebral palsy to describe what's going on rather than disabled. So sometimes the English language does not allow you to do identity first language. Luckily, Ben, you're in a community that luckily comes with a word that is beautiful that can just be like autistic person, and it's just nice and poetic when you say it. But like my disability doesn't have that, so sometimes you have to use one or the other based on how it's actually spelled in English.
What about normal? Normal, as defined by Webster's dictionary, is generally free from physical or mental impairment or dysfunction, exhibiting or marked by healthy or sound functioning. To panelists, what is normal for you?
Saeem, I think you don't need to raise your hand anymore. Just go ahead and speak.
Okay, I
Just
wasn't
unmute.
sure. I'm just trying to be polite. Okay. So to answer that question, what is normal? I would say being able to go to school without the turn around and going around in circles. Normal for me is just being able to take the city bus or take an accessoride wherever I want to go. It's normal is basically having access to things to let me do what I need to do.
Yeah, for me, I would like to add to what Sayun said, that I think normal, it's like anything like that you don't like, anything just like living and don't have any disabilities, just like common living.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's kind of just like whatever you're used to and what you find quote unquote normal. Normal for me is, as some of what Saeem said, taking the bus, going to school. Everybody has different interests. For me, normal is practicing writing and rapping every day and working on graphic design. So it really just falls under whatever you do and whatever you're used to doing every day.
I promise I'm not being contrarian, but if we're all going to come out as normal, I'm going to come out, I am a dragon, because apparently we're all saying we're something that doesn't actually exist. Normal isn't real. It's made up. It's a fairy tale. There's no such thing as normal.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that and say that, oh, sorry, I didn't.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, talk.
Gotcha. I was also gonna piggyback and say nothing is normal. I would say that's what makes everybody unique, because in a specific way. Everybody got a routine that seems normal to them. Everybody's got something that their own interest that they're, they believe to be normal to them. But what makes it unique that nobody's normal. Everybody's got their own hobbies. Everybody's got their own personalities, no matter who you are, where you come from, no matter what. That's what makes everything so unique. That's what I love about living in this type of world. What people try to describe as normal is people that are trying to put boundaries on you. And I say climb over those boundaries, because be the best person that you can be, not what anybody terminalized as normal. There is no normal. There's only what you can do and what others can do. Everybody has opportunities in this world. That's how I see it.
Yeah, thank
Beautifully
you so
put.
much for chiming in. I mean, in my experience, for me, having cerebral palsy is normal. This is the only way my body knows how to be. So I think normal is completely subjective. And when you see a disabled person navigating the world, don't assume that we don't see that as normal for us. We have our own ways of moving around, talking to people, whatever that work best for us. And it might look a little unusual, but like for us, it feels normal. It's not necessarily a sign that we immediately need help or we're immediately in distress. So just let the disabled person define that for themselves, and you'll, I think, have better friendships at the end of it.
Yeah, ultimately it's just an idea, because for me, like I've had this conversation with my mom all the time. Like she'll ask me to do a certain type of math and I can't do it. And it's funny, but that's just what I'm used to. Like I think differently, I learn differently, and that's just what I'm used to. So ultimately it's just the idea, and you have to define what that is to yourself. So yeah.
I agree with
Lauren,
what
would you like to speak next? Lauren Dorf?
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Okay.
I myself have a mental illness, and I've often contemplated that word, normal. And for a very long time, I never felt normal. And hearing everyone speak, I'm like, maybe that really isn't a word that exists. So I appreciate you all. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for sharing with us.
I think Nikki wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna piggyback on what Ben said, and I forgot who else mentioned. I think there's no such thing as normal. Everything is just a label.
Yeah.
How the society is kind of sort of put us in that position. Either so-called a normal person, we all tend to jump to conclusions or judge a book by its cover without actually knowing that person. You can see a normal person get on a bus, for example. You can see me get on a bus and I look totally normal, but you don't know my side of the story. You don't know what I'm going through. And at the end of the day, I'm being labeled as disabled. Everything and everybody's being labeled as some sort of point, either normal, disabled, crazy, whatever the story is just the way how society label us, and I think is really messed up and really wrong.
Thank you, Nikki.
I prefer the term person with normal.
Good one, Ben. Good one.
How does normal play into ableism? Ableism, as defined by Webster's dictionary, as discrimination or prejudice against individuals with disabilities. Panelists, what experience do you have with ableism? Margot, would you be interested in starting?
I'm happy to start, but I think Saeem has something on his mind.
Okay, yeah. Go for it.
Actually, Patrick, can you repeat the question one more time? I just want to make sure I have the right answer.
Here. How does normal play into ableism? ableism as defined by Webster's dictionary as discrimination or prejudice against individuals with disabilities. So what experience do you have with ableism?
I could be here all day.
You wrote a book.
But basically, to put it in a general sense, being left out of things or not meeting people's expectations, I think that's been most of my experience, that I couldn't do what they expect me to do, and that's why they treat me the way they did. To answer that question in a very short manner.
Very good. I would say that I've experienced ableism in the form of being told that I'm not independent enough, or getting the message that the way my body functions is not good enough. Unfortunately, in my case, I received a lot of this ableism from other disabled people that were older than me and wanted me to conform to their idea of what a disabled person should be, like editing the way that I describe my CP, or trying to tell me that person with a disability is better than disabled person, or just pressuring me to, you need to get 3 PhDs before we let you know that you're good enough, or you have to use the subway to show us that you're independent and prove that you're good enough. And that was very hurtful, and it messes with your mind in the long term, because when you experience, like, let's say a functional barrier, like I had another ableist experience where a campus, not Kingsborough, but another campus was not accessible to me. And when you hear those little voices in your mind of your body's not good enough, you wonder if, like, you did something wrong, when it's actually the structural barrier causing the problem. So it does have a long-term effect. So you need to be mindful of ableism for how it affects people mentally.
If it's all right, is it okay if I add on to that?
By all means.
Okay. First of all, I just want to say to all the Kingsborough staff here, thank you for making your school accessible to all of us. You guys spoiled me to death, so thank you.
Spoiled both of us.
To all the staff there, thank you. To add on to Margot, I really agree with that, because to other people that may not have a disability and runs these schools sometimes, what may be accessible in their minds is not truly accessible to us, because by just doing the bare minimum and not giving what we truly need, you're still being ableist, because you're limiting us from doing what we need to do. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
And I will also add that most of the accommodations that we're asking for is just for very basic stuff, how to get in and out, how to understand what is being said to us. It's not like stuff that would take rocket science to pull off. And yet they make stupid excuses like, oh, it's not actually legal for us to do that, even though Kingsborough does it every single day. That's a whole other story.
Yeah, I'd like to add to what Margaret and Saeem said, but I also had like a kind of different experience as to ableism. Like I remember like when I was doing like a math project in high school with other group members, and so we had to like pick topics and research information on that, and then like one of the members say like that the topic we picked was so lame, but like we all couldn't agree on that topic.
Colette wanted to say something, and I think we cut her off by accident.
No, I just had my hand raised. I was waiting for everyone to speak. Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to say that, as far as accessibility goes, I feel like a lot of times people only want to make things accessible to what they feel they know about a person with a disability, whether it's a ramp for a person in a wheelchair or elevators for people who can't walk and things of that nature. But the accessibility factor needs to be put in place in every aspect, in every type of organization or company, whether they feel like they're going to attract a person with disabilities. And unfortunately, we don't have that access for everyone. It's very limited. I know for myself, a lot of times people see me, and because my eyes are open, they don't know that I'm legally blind. Like there's times where I get on the bus and if I don't have my cane, it's like I just get treated a certain way for using a half fare Metro card because the bus driver's like, oh, why do you have that Metro card? You know, so they're looking at you a certain way because they're making an assumption because they don't perceive you to have a disability.
Yeah, and
I would like to build on that.
you could go.
Oh, thank you, Eugene. So when you are perceived as not having a disability, I feel that is a big part of ableism. And I've been told many times, oh, well, are you really autistic? Is that something that's like, because you're pretty
Exactly.
like, okay, when an ambulance drives by at night in Coney Island and I have to close my eyes and cover my ears in order to cope, you tell me I'm not autistic. I'm sorry. You can't see it. It doesn't mean it's not happening.
And I have that issue as well because my vision is so low, my ears are so super sensitive. So something that might not seem as loud to an individual who is not visually impaired, for me, it's like excruciating. And people look at me like, it's not even that loud. It's loud to me though.
Yeah. Even before my diagnosis, I've felt ostracized and outcasted from friends, family, you know, society, whatever. But, you know, growing up, I remember teachers trying to teach me certain things and they're like, he's not getting it. He's just not getting it. He's not trying. And that's just because they didn't understand the way that I was retaining information and learning. So, you know, according to other people, I shouldn't even be in college right now. I shouldn't have even made it this far. But, you know, over everything, you know, you just have to overcome and evolve and just keep going. And that's what I've learned, even though as unfortunate as it is to feel outcasted, I've learned to revel in it and enjoy that because, you know, at least I'm not like everybody else.
Yeah, and I'll also piggyback on that a little bit, which even with my level of CP, which is visible to other people, there's aspects that other people cannot see, particularly the fact that I have much less balance than I appear to have. So sometimes people will be like, oh yeah, let's just do this thing on the spur of the moment. And like, I'm like, no, because I have to figure out how to, you know, get up on the thing or whatever without like falling on my face. And then I'm also making a documentary with another Kingsborough professor, Marilyn Navarro. And as we're making this documentary, we're meeting a lot of people that have invisible conditions that lead to a lot of chronic pain. But because those people are like so used to dealing with pain and exhaustion and stuff, they actually appear as if they're able-bodied. And then when they try to get help with an accommodation or medical help or something like that, they're actually not believed, and it can get pretty bad because they're just so used to coping that way that their bodies don't really show it anymore. So you never really know what a person's going through, and I find that it's better to kind of believe the person and try to like walk in their shoes, if you will, and kind of, you know, realize that, yeah, just because they look one way doesn't mean their body's actually functioning as well as you think it is.
I wanted to add on to that, if that was all right.
Yes.
So I also want to add, based on what Margot said, I think it also goes into this narrative that we need to be cured. I think that's part of the reason why the ableism is there, because people have this expectation that disability is so bad and that we need to get rid of it. So I think that's where the ableist comes in, because they expect us to not live in a happy way because we're disabled, as if it's all negative.
I agree with you, Saeem. And to build off of that, I feel like a lot of it, magic wand, boom, tomorrow I don't have autism. I stop being a cool person because I learned to be cool around the brain I was given. Take that away from me, what do I have? Nothing. A cure, which should not exist and will not exist, would just end up shooting me in the foot.
Because ultimately that would make you, it just the system telling you should fall in line. That's ultimately what that, like, you know, the government or whoever has a criteria of what a person should be but ultimately that's just so you fall in line and whatever. Yeah, no, I understand that.
You know, at our last session, we had a philosophy professor talking about the philosophy of ableism. And one thing he explained was that with the term disability, the dis actually meant different, right? And what he likened that to is that we are all different, right? And I don't think any two people can say that they're exactly the same. But I agree with what you're saying, Eugene, that it seems like there is a mold that maybe society or some people want us to fit into. And I say, you know, don't fall in with the mold, because I like you all exactly the way that you are.
Thank you, Peter.
That is very well said.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Peter.
To build off of what Peter said, I'm going to go off script for a moment. The philosophy of disability, it really begs the question, well, let's do a thought experiment. What would we do if lacking creativity was considered a disability? What would we do if, you know, not being able to have fun was considered a disability? These are real things that happen to people, but we don't pathologize them. I feel like it's very arbitrary what's pathologized.
Does the
Yeah, and you
audience
could
have
say
any
that some
questions?
things are like over pathologized, like you're making things that are actually just people's moods changing throughout the day into like a huge problem. At least when I was in the public school system, what I noticed was there was a tendency to, if the kid was having a problem, get them tested for disability rather than maybe asking them, what do you don't understand, you know, instead of turning it into a whole evaluation. Now, there's of course the other end of the spectrum where you don't get that accommodation that you need, but I think you need to like not make an assumption, like go to the kid first and say, what are you having trouble with? And if it seems like a disability like dyslexia or something, then you go in that direction. If it seems like, nah, I'm just bored with the class, you address it from there. So.
Yeah, I think Tanisha has her hand up. I think she would like to comment.
Good afternoon.
Does the audience
y'all.
have any questions?
Hi. Hi,
I think
y'all.
Tanisha does. Hi.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions. Y'all know me. Hello, everybody. I have a situation, okay? I'm the one with the, I have a learning disability, right? I also have a issue with my physical. I have a bad back, because I had 3 car accidents while I was on duty as an officer. And now I realize I'm going for an MRI for both of my knees because I have no cartilage. So I can't stand too long nor sit too long. Yeah. But I'm a culinary major. My thing is, how can the job force can accommodate us? Because I've been going through a lot of jobs, a lot of interviews, asking questions, do you help person with a learning disability? And he looked at me weird. Or when I took a post office test to be like an urban carrier, the road test was 4 hours. I still didn't get it, but I was trying. And one of the guys said, well, you failed the test, but I see you in the last 30 minutes, you're about to understand how to handle the truck. So I explained to the instructor that I had a learning disability. And he said, well, okay, you failed, but you can take the test all over again. My thing was, if you know I got a learning disability, there ain't no way I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna learn if I have a driver's lesson for a whole week. Not you telling me this is the test, this is the day, we're gonna teach you a couple of minutes and you gotta drive this truck. How can we find a job that got benefits, pensions, okay, the whole nice benefit package with someone who had a learning disability or any kind of disability. Because right now I'm looking at these jobs and they not accommodating anybody.
I think Saeem might have an answer for you.
Who?
Me.
Go with it. Go with it.
Yeah, so all right, so where do I start? There's a bunch of organizations out there that you can apply for and they will help you find a job. That's one thing. In terms of the accommodation, basically for physical or any accommodations really, what I would do is just plainly state what you need right off the bat. Like I wouldn't ask them, do you accommodate people with disabilities? I would just be like, because of my wheelchair, you know, because of my disability, I need this, this, and this. Because if you put it that way, they don't know what you're talking about. But if you specify what you need, they know what you're talking about because they can have an easier picture in their head. By just generalizing the disability, they don't know what to give you or what to offer you. And this is just me personally. I try to avoid a lot of jobs that may have physical activity because I know I can't handle a lot of physical activity. But if you do want to apply a job that may have physical activity, maybe you want to ask them for maybe like more breaks or something. Yeah, so that was a mouthful. Did that answer your question?
I see Eugene Ross about to say something. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I would like to chime in a little bit. Speaking, you know, as someone who has a learning disability, definitely for that job you were talking about, I agree with what Saeem said, but for you specifically, you probably would have said, you know, I have a learning disability, I need more time to, because, you know, that's what it seemed like you said the last 30 minutes you were about to get it. And so, you know, for people with learning disabilities, I can only speak for myself, but for depending on what it is, like I would need more time for something like that probably. And it's just the way you understand and retain information. So yeah, I agree with Saheem. As long as you're upfront about it from the beginning, that would probably definitely help you. And I think some people posted links in the chat for job accommodation networks. So there's that as well. But
yeah, there's quite a few organizations that help to back individuals with disabilities when it comes to employment issues. I can put together a list and be able to send to you guys after this meeting.
Well, that would be really appreciated because right now my fear is I'm a culinary major and being in that field is very fast. Now I had an internship that was not fast. It was the teaching kitchen in St. Barnabas in the Bronx, which is you teach people how to cook food healthier and more like a small intimate and a 101. Now I've been going to Kingsville for culinary. The professors already let me know before I even did the internship that that's not going to be the kind of environment. The more they described it, it seemed like a Chef Ramsay Hell's Kitchen. So me with a learning disability, I'm hyperventilating because it takes me a while to study when you're a culinary major, you got to study the recipe. You got to look at it. Right. Now, they don't want you sitting and looking at it too long. They want you to grasp it and then hit to the kitchen. But I'm already had a taste of doing something else for culinary, which is not that fast environment. So my thing is, how will I be able to find that kind of job again with my situation? And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Is it okay if I chime in?
Go for it.
Okay. So I don't know much about the cooking world, but but like, don't you guys have assistants in there that helps you with the cooking and the prepping and the whatnot?
Nope.
All right. Your second option, and this is for anyone that is in that kind of lucrative world, you might want to just go off on your own and do your own thing and be your own boss and set your own rules. But that might be a lot more difficult with that. I would consider
Well,
that.
that's why I'm graduating from Kingsborough with the culinary arts, because I finished my semester in November. Right now, as we speak, because Kingsborough taught me the creativity of being a chef. Now I'm in City Tech, understand the business. Right now I'm doing hospitality, financial, accounting. So you learn how to open the books and making journals and stuff and breaking breakdowns of
Right.
your spending and stuff. So now I'm learning the business. Yes, eventually I want to do that, but you keep on forgetting in the culinary world, a lot of restaurants was closed. Now everybody had that little loan to keep their restaurant.
Yeah.
COVID, yeah.
Okay, due to COVID. So the restaurant world is different now.
Yeah.
So now I gotta look another technique. Yes, I would like to have what you call a food truck. But in New York, here in New York City, they really giving out the voucher for veterans. I'm not a veteran. So there's a long list for me.
And
to
it
even
knows
have
only veterans. That's nuts.
Yeah, no, because they have to help the veterans. Because right now, my father's a Vietnam vet. So if I do a good business proposal and use my dad on top of me, I might own a truck. But again, you got to get collateral to get the truck. I got to have a CDL license. That means I got to take another test. So again, and me doing a CDL, oh my God, just for me to get my driver's license, just to read the book, I failed it 4 times. But I passed the road test 1 time. So I can imagine me trying to study that CDL, especially the air brakes. The air brake's going to kill me.
Oh boy.
Okay?
Well, Tanisha, I really feel badly for your situation and all the barriers that have been put in your place. But one thing that I'm seeing, and that I know personally, is that you are a very resilient person. And I think I could say the same for everybody on this panel. And I think that, eventually you will find your way, and maybe that's something that you could talk to me or Nick from our office about. But, I don't think this panel or this audience is going to be prepared to be able to answer your question, but we definitely understand the frustration. And, we feel for you. But like I said, one thing I know is that you as a person, you're going to find a way and you're going to get where you want to go, because you've done that so many times already in your past.
Yeah, I definitely will say too, is honestly is probably a really good issue that you brought up, because, if there isn't a solution for it now, then, it's the duty of our society to get to that solution. So, that would probably be figured out, because I don't know if there's like I don't know if there's unionization for people who work in food. I mean, there probably is, but you either would have to bring it to a federal level or a union level to like figure out issues with accommodation and stuff like that.
The restaurant business, if it's private, no. But if you say like federal, you got the federal food service worker, you got the state jobs, those are the ones that will be accommodating, because that's the state and federal. So they don't want no lawsuit, so they will accommodate. But when you're talking about culinary and a big open umbrella, the majority of it is a private sector.
Right.
Thank you for.
Can I add on really quick?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Have you thought about looking into airport for chef position, because they're a lot slower pace, a lot less chaotic. They don't deal with the client at all. It's just they pre-made the food so that they could put it in the airplane, put on the plane. So there's a set amount of food you gotta make each day, but it's not as chaotic. But the application part is a little bit harder to get in. But since if you have a veterinary background or something like that, or connection wise, maybe that would be helpful for your resume.
Well, thank you for the suggestions. Thank you. And for everybody, I mean, and I guess that shows the power of networking, right? And maybe talking to different people. But I'd like to kind of steer us back towards our conversation, right? About ableism, what is normal in society, what, anybody have any more comments about those things? And audience as well, if you have any comments or or questions related to that, then please bring them up.
How can we bring it to the public, that kind of attention, because it is limited. They only know certain amounts, not all of them. Okay, like I said, in the post office, they have someone is deaf, but they don't have nothing for me who have a learning disability. So how can we, or by writing letters or state or wherever, inform other people that there's more than a few amount of, titles or whatever we call it for, I can't think of the words because I'm studying, my brain is so mush.
That's why we have to continue to do things like this panel
Yeah.
and be able to speak out and create a platform for one another where we get together regularly and put it out there,
That's exactly what I was
social
going to
media,
say.
yeah.
Vocalization. Ultimately, it's vocalization. We all, as people who don't have disabilities and people who do have disabilities, we have to use our voices to help other people that are in need. And if it has to be brought to a federal level, then that's what has to happen. And those are the moves that have to be made in order to find a solution to these problems.
Yeah, I would also like to say, because especially since I see this coming up in the chat, I do use social media to advocate, but that became actual films that I posted to YouTube, and that's how I advocate, just kind of showing what disabled actors can do when they're employed, and also showing, stories of disabled people, actively applying for jobs or working in jobs, just so people have that sort of that mental image of like, this is something that's possible. And I would also advise, like, just everybody, like, actually start to get to know disabled people, because like the media will give you part of the story, seeing those images, that representation is very important. But when you start to meet real people, you start to see that, even disabilities that might seem scary at first, like bipolar or something, like once you know the person, it's really not that bad. Once you know how they work and everything, you get to know this stuff. That's a long process as far as the employment thing, because like the employer has to be aware and kind of bring the accessibility into it from the ground up. But I think we're getting closer to that, where people are going to have an easier time, but it does have a way to go.
Yeah.
So, did you want to?
Just wanted to add, ultimately, education is the remedy to ignorance, and having discussions like this is why it's so important. But yeah, ultimately education is the way to go, and you kind of just have to teach people things, because people oftentimes are afraid of what they don't understand, and that's where that fear comes from.
That's absolutely true. And I wanted to I just wanted to share also, like, this is why I'm going to be launching my own podcast at the end of this month, to share awareness about blind and disabled individuals. Also this weekend, I'm hosting and participating in a fashion show to spread blind awareness for Disabilities Week.
Yeah, Colette, please share that information in the chat so that folks can maybe attend as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And Colette, if you need help with that podcast, I'd be happy to help you. I am familiar with some media related things because of my films, and I might know other people that can help.
I would definitely appreciate that. The showcase is called Not My Eye Showcase. It's going to be held in Valley Stream, New York. The link for it is bit.ly/Not My Eyes. I'll type it in the chat in a second. Yeah, so myself and my business partner created this platform to be able to spread awareness about blind and low vision, because a lot of people don't understand that there's a shady gray area between blind and seeing, which is the community like myself that are legally blind or low vision, and we get faded into the background, and we need just as much support as the next person.
Eugene, I'm not sure you got to finish your thought. Were you done with what you were saying before? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for whoever shared that in the chat for me.
Yeah, that was your boy Ben.
Thank you.
Best buddy.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's certain coming out of this panel is that we still have a lot of work to do. right? There's still a lot of awareness that needs to be learned, right? And people need to learn more about the differences between human beings and not highlight
Sorry,
what
baby.
people cannot do, right? But more what they can do, and focus on people's strengths and what they bring to the table, not necessarily, you know, what we
Sorry.
were talking about, these arbitrary kinds of things that, what was that? Oh, I thought I was hearing something in the back, sorry. And not holding people to these arbitrary standards, right? Or these molds that, as we said, what is normal? There is no such thing as normal. It's different for each one of us. So I thank you all for sharing so much of your experience and being so honest with some of the struggles that you've had, and also with, you know, a lot of the successes that you've been able to achieve. And most of all, being able to really accept your personal identity and all that that entails. So thank you everyone for attending.
Wait, Ben, do you want to share yours about super quick, I think, or
I
session
think the
using?
time got behind us. We'll do that another time.
Yeah, that's another panel for another day, but I also wanted to remind everybody that I put this in the chat. I'm making a documentary called What the Body Believes, and we do need some crew to come on to help us with the project. And it's exactly what we were just talking about today, raising more awareness of what things like these terms mean, and just doing what we need to do to increase accessibility for all. So my email is in the chat for that if anybody's interested.
I'm happy that you learned a lot, Deborah. That's amazing. And thank you for sharing that also, Margot.
You're welcome, Colin. And I know that the professor that's doing the documentary with me is aware of you, and she wants you involved in the project as well. So we're going to talk about that.
Ooh, yay. I'm excited.
Yeah.
But tomorrow we have a couple more events. We have the Recreation Club on campus is going to be doing a session on accessible spaces and how ableism drives the way that parks and rec spaces are designed. And that's why they're not accessible. Many of them are not accessible to people with disabilities. And then we have a guest speaker from off campus who's going to be talking about intersectionality and transphobia, homophobia, and how that intersects into the identities of people with disabilities. So I hope that many of you can make it to our two events tomorrow as we wrap up Disability Awareness Week. And I thank you all for joining us today.
Is it going to be the same link, Peter?
No, you have to register for that event.
Okay.
Let me actually post it in the chat. Give me a sec. I normally have all this stuff queued up, but kind of got away from me today.
All right.
Yeah, I think Carol went.
So here's the full agenda in the chat now, and you'll find the last two events on that agenda.